Hello everyone, this is Nathan Lindorf with the Rational Independent. We're going to talk about an article from Reddit from an organization called Truth Out. Pretty far lefty, but definitely the top voted article by a good measure today on Reddit. We're going to briefly discuss this article. However, we're going to zoom out a little bit to get, I think, a better perspective on what's going on in the culture and the political narrative. Alaska considers joining Colorado in disqualifying Trump from the primary ballot. After the recent ruling in Colorado, other states are weighing in on Trump's eligibility to appear on election ballots. I know it's subjective, but I like to look at the photos that are chosen to accompany these articles because it's pretty easy to tell if you're going for a crazed angle or a domineering or a farcical angle, but that's a fair photo. John Anthony Castro, a 2024 Republican presidential candidate, has petitioned the U.S. District Court of Alaska to declare Donald Trump ineligible to appear on the state's election ballot. This is setting a legal founding. There's a whole legal doctrine about standing. And the general idea is you're not allowed to file suit unless you're directly affected by the issue at hand. So an easy way to kind of understand this would be your neighbor down the street dies, and there's some controversial language in his will. His money is going to his descendants. Even if you disagree with what's going on, you don't have any standing. You're not involved. You're not a beneficiary. You're not a part of the family. You're peripherally aware of it, but you have no standing. So on the face of it, standing kind of makes sense. In this case, we have a Republican presidential candidate. This is the first I've heard of this person. I pay pretty close attention to politics. I've been watching the primaries. I've never even heard this guy in a news article, in a poll result, anything. Calling him a presidential candidate, I assume he actually is, but on paper only. I can't imagine that this guy has any kind of a public founding, but because he's a presidential candidate, a Republican presidential candidate, now he has standing as it relates to issues regarding primaries. So maybe I'll dig into him a little bit later. We can do a deep dive and see what's going on, but that's why he has to be the one to file this, because they need something to kick the issue off, someone who has standing. That's also why in Colorado, that lawsuit was filed by Republican voters, because you have to be participating in the Republican primary in order to file a suit regarding the Republican primary. That way, you have standing in that issue. If you're a Democrat and it's a closed primary, you can't participate, so you can't sue because you have no standing. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. And shockingly, he's filed similar lawsuits in more than 24 states. So this is a bone to pick. This is something he wants to do. Again, I've never even heard of the guy, but there you go. This seems to be his thing, is he's making a run at Donald Trump. I'm going to go ahead and read this. This looks to be a quote from the suit. And then we're going to kind of zoom out and go big picture. On January 6, 2021, after witnessing a large group of Trump supporters violently attacking the United States Capitol to prevent the lawful certification of the 2020 election results, with the goal of unlawfully compelling John Trump's inauguration on January 20th, hereafter referred to as the January 6th insurrection, defendant Donald John Trump stated on live television, "We love you, you're very special," to the insurrectionists. Defendant Donald John Trump provided the insurrectionists with comfort in the form of words of sympathy. And this is why I wanted to suggest that we zoom out a little bit. Because the more I look at this issue and the more I look at it's a hot button issue, and it's only going to get hotter as we head into the primary season officially. Whether or not Donald Trump is allowed to be on the ballot, whether or not he's disqualified because of January 6th. This is a very heated issue that people have really strong feelings about. And if you look at the picture, if you look at left and right and listen to them, take the points that they're raising seriously, both sides have valid reasoning. Here's where things get interesting. And this is where the challenge in modern politics comes from. If I show you video of a man hitting a dog with a club, you're going to be angry at that man. However, if I show you the rest of the video that shows that dog attacks the man's baby and is getting ready to shake it, and he hits the dog to protect the baby, That's a bad situation. But with that context, you see something different. In other words, if you are presented with an edited set of facts and you only hear facts that are congruent with your narrative, then you are going to believe that you're seeing the unvarnished truth. You're going to believe that what you see is factual. And if you believe that really, really strongly, then I can't rationalize you out of that position. Because effectively, I'm arguing that you're wrong to be upset about a man hitting a dog with a club. If you then turn your attention and talk to someone on the other side, and they look at their edited, carefully curated set of facts that show the other side of the issue, they are firmly and passionately believing that you need to protect the child, that protecting a child is worth risking your reputation. It's worth even injuring another, an animal. And their reasoning for being passionate about that is valid. But maybe they're only looking at part of the picture. That's really the problem. We have so much information. We all are really only looking at part of the picture. And in this way, I want to zoom out and say, this article is not about Donald Trump. It's not about John Anthony Castro. It's not even about the Republican primaries. It's about January 6th. What's growing in my mind is recognizing that January 6th is essentially a Rorschach test for America. As you may or may not know, a Rorschach test is the idea of trying to tap into someone's subconscious by showing them ambiguous pictures, ink blots, random patterns, and asking someone to find something in the picture that they see. Do you see a butterfly? Do you see a snake? Do you see a naked woman? Whatever. And in this way, the psychologist can the idea is, get an idea of what's preoccupying a person, because they're going to imprint what's preoccupying them onto these images that really have no meaning. That's what a Rorschach test is. So January 6th is a Rorschach test for America. And it's a very dangerous game that we're playing. Because, one, most of the footage has not been released. There's some security reasons for that. There's some political sensitivity reasons for that. Fine, whatever. That's a whole separate issue. But what we have is, we have a fair bit of video that's been released, and credit to those who got that done. Personally, I think transparency is the best disinfectant. I want to see the whole picture. However, it's very easy for people on the right to show footage of peaceful protesters who got let in the door, who had the barricades removed out of their way, who walked through, and they don't even bother the stanchions, the little velvet ropes. They walk around them, and if a police officer asks them to do something, they completely comply, and they're holding, little selfie sticks and their little grandmas and whatnot, and they look innocent and peaceful as can be. And if you put together a compilation, a video clip of January 6th, and that's what you show, you're going to show your people that January 6th was nothing. It was not a big deal. It's been overblown. They're making a huge deal out of nothing. People who came in, and then when they were asked to leave, they left. And they were orderly the whole time. And that's true as far as it goes. But it's only part of the picture. If you look elsewhere, other video feeds, other areas, you'll see, and I've seen it because I've been looking at the footage, you'll see people breaking windows, people striking police officers, people getting into shoving matches, whole crowds of people getting into shoving matches, people getting crushed as these bodies of people are moving back and forth, tear gas being fired, rubber bullets being fired. You're going to see all sorts of stuff. And if you put together a supercut of all the most violent and outrageous behavior, shouting and yelling and spittle flying and fear, then you're going to say, look at this terrible thing that happened. This is a travesty. And you're right insofar as what you're showing someone did actually happen. But you have to be willing to look at the whole picture. Both pictures are valid. But if you take the left and they curate January 6th to show one specific set of behaviors, and you take the right and you curate January 6th to show another set of behaviors, then the reasoning that both sides are using, where they say Donald Trump should not be ineligible. Look, this was hardly anything. This is ridiculous. This is a trumped up, no pun intended, charge. It informs the right's opposition to the idea of removing Donald Trump from the ballot. And their reasoning is not wrong. They're seeing the person protecting the baby. You're seeing the most favorable footage on your side. And so your reasoning says, no, he's my candidate. We shouldn't remove him. But on the left, you get the opposite. You say, of course he has to be removed. This is the worst thing that's happened in a really long time. It's completely unacceptable. We can't support this. We need to set an example that this kind of behavior cannot happen, or we lose the orderly transition of power. And that's a terrible thing. Their reasoning is not wrong, but you have two sides that are arguing past each other because they are arguing from different sets of facts. Their pictures, their Rorschach test, has been split apart. It's been curated. Now, I don't like rabbit holes. I don't like conspiracy theories, but I'm willing to acknowledge the possibility of their presence. So let me toss out some ideas that might change this picture. What about the idea that a federal informant in the crowd with a mission, with a purpose, or multiple informants, or multiple even agents undercover, who were on site designed to rile up the crowd? And I'll give you an example. The night before January 6th, Ray Epps was a man who we know was an FBI informant, who was at one time on the 10 most wanted, I think, and then was removed, who was on video fomenting the crowd and saying, tomorrow we have to go in the Capitol. We're not just demonstrating on the grounds. We have to go in. He's starting to plant the idea that the crowd needs to take over the Capitol. That's on video. Is it possible? He's not the only one. It's at least possible. It's worth arguing. Now, if you take January 6th and you say, what about the guards that chose to open the doors and let people in? That's a decision that was made by somebody. Why was that decision made? If you are afraid for your lives and you're worried that the Capitol's being invaded, why are you letting people in? Why are you removing barricades? These are actions that are on video. Makes you think that maybe there might be some other things going on. What about the overall relative lack of police manpower? The Capitol Police has, I think, 2,500 uniformed police officers. They had the National Guard. I mean, you're telling me that in Washington, D.C., you can't get security for one of the most important buildings? Of course you can. It's one of the most secure cities in the world. If they're undermanned, so they cannot push back on the crowd, that makes it easier for the crowd to have an incursion and give you the footage that you need should you want to create this political message. I'm not saying any of this has been proven. I'm saying it's worth considering, if you're thinking critically about January 6th, that one, you may be looking at a curated set of images that are giving you a distorted picture. And two, the images that you're looking at, you have to ask, why were they created and how were they created? If people knew that January 6th was going to be a problem, they could have staffed up soldiers and military and police officers to lock the place down, and then the crowds wouldn't have been able to accomplish anything. But they didn't. They kept it relatively low staff, and they didn't ask for the National Guard. And by the way, Donald Trump had nothing to do with that. The person in charge of the Capitol Police, Nancy Pelosi, not a friend of Trump. January 6th could have gone very differently. It went the way that it did. And for those who misbehaved, those who broke the law, go to prison. I have no patience for you. However, it is equally egregious to take people who were effectively let in, who were dupes, just kind of moved along with the crowd and found themselves in the Capitol based on the motion of the crowd. I don't know if you've ever been in a crowd that really wants to go somewhere. Sometimes your choice is go with the sea of people or get trampled. That's a scary situation, but it happens. If you're in a crowd and you end up, oh, shoot, I just stepped over broken glass and I'm now in the Capitol building and I'm face to face with a police officer and he's telling me I need to leave. Well, I'm trying to, but there's a crowd of people behind me streaming in through the door. Again, watch the video. It's publicly available. but let me just try and distill it down to this. January 6th is a Rorschach test for America. You are being shown a carefully curated set of images that are not the whole truth. And your reasoning and your political actions that you take and the political stances that you take and the things that you argue for that are built on only part of the truth are going to lead you directly into the teeth of this pending political crisis. Because you cannot remove Donald Trump from the ballot or you risk civil war. And you cannot leave him on the ballot and have a bunch of people who believe he's a criminal, leave him on the ballot, let the election happen, and if he gets elected, now you have a whole chunk of the country who believes that America insisted we elect a criminal, that we elect someone who is evil incarnate, the bad orange man. That doesn't lead us anywhere good either. So ask yourself the question, is it possible that this was set up intentionally to foster the exact kind of division and unrest that we are facing based on this issue because it's politically advantageous for whoever set it up? Is that possible? Because if it's possible, it's worth pursuing. It's worth considering, because I don't like being duped any more than the next guy. I don't like being lied to or manipulated either. Are you willing to be lied to? Are you willing to be manipulated? Personally, if you see an article like this where you're looking at Donald Trump and you're hearing people say, oh, state after state is now going to try and remove him from the ballot. If that's the level that you fight this out at, you are going to argue past the people who are arguing back at you on the other side, because the root of your reasoning goes to January 6th. And because of the curation and editing power and the echo chambers that we have, most of the people who are vociferously arguing these points are operating from different sets of facts. And that's a problem. You're never going to win that argument. You're never going to solve that. You're going to destroy relationships and you're going to accomplish nothing. So I would encourage you, should you face someone you want to debate this out, take the conversation to January 6th. Look at the facts and try and arrive at a common set of facts with whoever you're debating. Facts you agree on. Look at the whole picture. If you believe January 6th was an overblown PR disaster designed to basically create a pretext to destroy Donald Trump's political career, look at the violence that happened and who accomplished that violence. And ask yourself, is this okay? This is real. This happened. Face that. However, if you're on the other side, if you're on the left, and you think this is the worst thing that's ever happened, ask yourself, why are these soldiers and police officers removing barricades, getting out of the way, opening doors, allowing people to move through the building? Why is that happening? And then last, I'll simply say this. I will reiterate that I think January 6th, while problematic, was nowhere near the level of what has been labeled as an insurrection, essentially making it on the same moral footing as the Civil War. And I didn't make that comparison. The people issuing these challenges make that comparison because they are using the amendment to the Constitution from the Civil War era, designed to reintegrate America, but protect America from people who were part of the Confederacy. That's the statute. That's the constitutional clause that they're using to try and justify removing Donald Trump. So they make that comparison. I will repeat, I don't think it rises anywhere to the level of that for a handful of reasons. One, in case you look at the timestamps on the footage, from the time Crazy Horns guy breaks into the lobby to the time that the last protester is evicted from the building and those who are left are handcuffed and under guard, crisis is over, is about 2 hours. From 2 o'clock to about 4:30 in the afternoon. Ask yourself, when's the last time you had a civil war where no one brought any guns and it was over in an afternoon? Sorry, that's not how civil wars work. If this crowd of people really wanted to do what the people claiming insurrection wanted to do, why would they leave? Why wouldn't they take the weapons from the Capitol Police when they overwhelmed them because they outnumbered them? Why wouldn't they hold the building? Why wouldn't they hold people hostage? Why wouldn't they do anything that people attempting a coup do? Because that's not what they were trying to do. This is a protest that got out of hand for a variety of reasons. There are a bunch of idiots who did foolish stuff that day, violent and otherwise. I believe there were professional instigators in there, either paid informants or FBI agents, who made things worse on purpose because it suited their political narrative. And I believe once the powers that be felt like they had the footage that they need, the whole thing got shut down and the useful idiots got ejected. And the instigators stopped instigating. And suddenly, peace is restored. That's my Reddit rant for today. Good luck out there.